This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what's in today's show, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, this week we're meeting somebody that I've known for about 30 years, but never actually spoken to before. He's my favourite cryptozoological artist, and his name is Bill Rebsamen.
I really like the old credits.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's John Downs, I'm the director. Hang on, what's happening over there? It looks like we've been transported to a particularly posh part of the home counties.
And now, and in colour, it's time for Gwen Dibley's Words of Wisdom.
She wields a big wooden ladle, rules all. Well, let's start again, and I'm miraculously wearing a totally different coloured jumper. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, my name's John Downs, I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and this is my little cat Lilith, who I love very much, and who is the real presenter of what you're about to watch, another episode of On the Track.
I'm the real director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, but all the others are too stupid to realise.
And Lilith and I would like to explain that just in case you didn't realise for whatever reason, either because you're a newbie or because you're an old bee, if that's a word, but you haven't been paying attention, see, Lilith is disgusted at the idea that you might not have been paying attention to her. On the Track comes out twice a week on Wednesday evenings at 6:30 and at Saturday afternoons at 3. This is one of the Saturday afternoon ones. And the Saturday shows are about half an hour, the Wednesday shows are about half that, and they are a mélange, a mixture, a montage, a myopic, no that doesn't make any sense, a Minneapolis, no that makes even less sense, but I'm sure there are all sorts of other things beginning with N, of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality, you might ask? Well, as Lilith is the most surreal cat I know, I think we should probably ask her.
Surreality is a way of looking at the world through a lens of absurdity. And it's what Daddy and Uncle V and the rest of those idiots do very well.
I've already told you who our special guest is this week, but I'd like to put it into some sort of historical context. I and the CFZ first got online at the end of 1997, and one of the first things I did was to join a cryptozoological discussion group, which was then being hosted by a guy called Chad Armand on a platform called One Groups. I soon became quite close friends with many of the people in the group, and I was especially friendly with a young artist called Bill Rebsamen, who I found very early on was a magnificent artist. And over the years, we've stayed in touch, we've stayed friends, we've corresponded with emails and sent each other pictures and gifts and all sorts of other things. But until last weekend, we'd never actually met for the first time. And so, here, ladies and gentlemen, is the first part of a two-part interview with Bill Rebsamen, my favourite cryptozoological artist. So, Bill, it's lovely to meet you after all these years. You know, it's been, like I said, a quarter of a century, for heaven's sake. And this is the first time we've ever spoken.
Well,
But,
this is an honor. It's an honor, John. I've followed your articles, you and Richard, from the very beginning of the Center of Fortean Zoology, and I sent you a little bit of my super secret crypto origins and my own humble beginnings, and I was lucky. Right after I came across a Fortean Times magazine that had some book reviews, like Jerome Clark's book, The Unexplained. This is in 1993. And his footnotes were just so extensive and meticulous and detailed. And it was just a treasure trove of information. And I believe you were mentioned in Jerome's book. He's had that book republished, I believe, about 3 times. I had the original copy or the original publication. And shortly after that, I couldn't get enough. I mean, I was ordering books. This is before Amazon. And I actually signed up as a result of finding that Fortean Times magazine, first of all, just on my lunch one day at a newsstand. I'm like, what is that weird magazine down there? And I was just blown away. And of course, you guys were mentioned in the Fortean Times. And I found Jerome's book. I ordered it immediately. I had all these great footnotes. And I started, I signed up for Matthew Bill's Exotic Zoology. And he was communicating with all these great researchers. Carl Schuker's name was mentioned in there. And along comes AOL. And we're I believe I might have chatted with you and Richard early on in a chat room, I believe. And it was just so great. It was just the dawn of a new era. I can hear that dial up right now, from the early 90s. You wait forever. And hold on, let me get a drink real quick here. Got some coffee I got going. But yeah, man, we'll just kind of start from there. Have you got any questions about anything in particular?
Well, starting at the beginning, I've always known you were a musician, and I've heard some of your stuff before, and I've always known you were an artist, and I've seen your stuff for years. But which came first, the music or the art?
It was really probably simultaneous. Growing up as a small child, my mom would read to me and she would say, "What book tonight?" Every single night, I'm bringing the dinosaur books. And I was a product of my mother's second marriage. I think my middle name was because my father was 50 years old. My mother was 40 when I was born. So I had much older siblings. And in fact, my brother was in medical college, and I had found one of his zoology books. And I had started re-illustrating. If there was a picture of a dinosaur on one spread of the page, I would be re-illustrating it over here, right on the book. I was like 5 years old. And of course, music-wise, there was always a piano and an organ. There in our house or at my grandmother's house. She played. So I was always, from the time I could reach the keyboard. And I learned early on, I could hear notes. At one point, probably by the time I was in middle school, I heard a song on the radio, and in my mind, I could see the movement of the player's hands and fingers and even the chord position. And there was a piano there in a student union at the college where my mother worked. And I heard a song and I thought, I wonder if that's right. And I walked over to the piano and it was right. So I've just been blessed. Now, having said that, never ask me to balance a checkbook or work on your automobile.
No. Never asked me to do that either.
Yeah. There's that whole right side, left side brain thing going on here with me.
No, I have music in my head all the time.
Oh yeah, I can't turn it off.
No.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I believe we are much the same.
And I have no idea what a carburetor is or what it does, and I don't care. So I have no idea about cars or engines or any of those things.
I left my story off. I was fortunate after finding all these footnotes in Jerome's book and Matt Bill's Exotic Zoology. You know, he was very thorough as well. Carl Schuker, of course, I had ordered from a review in the Fortean Times Magazine, like the next issue. I was like constantly hitting that newsstand, waiting on the next Fortean Times Magazine to come out. And the very next one had a review of Carl's In Search of Prehistoric Survivors. And I'm like, take my money now, you know, sign me up. And a friend of mine's mom had a bookstore. So I had ordered all these through her. And they had, right about the same time Carl's book came out, they had republished, oh, I've got it right here. Let me find that. They had republished this.
I remember when that came out again.
Yes, and I paid big bucks for this when this first came out. So I was just pleased to death. And then somebody, obviously, I believe from Humboldt County, California, must have moved into my city, and maybe they passed away or something, but there was a used bookstore and I found this.
Oh, that's a wonderful book, isn't it?
It is. And there were several cryptozoology type oriented things in my little city in a used bookstore. I found Ivan T. Sanderson's Abominable Snowmen and several others, Willie Lee, one of his books. So somebody was serious about cryptozoology that had moved here from California. I don't know how these books arrived, but they were meant for me. I was there that day and I saw one and I kept finding them. I must have found 3 or 4 really good, just cryptozoological tomes, just, you know, not to be without if you're into this subject. So I was very fortunate for that. Get another drink here. But I was fortunate to be able to find Matt Bill's Exotic Zoology and have that delivered to my house. And I look for that in the mail, you know, once a month. Matt did a wonderful job putting that publication together. Were you ever a member of that?
Mm.
Yes. And his very last issue, because he decided everything was going the way of the digital realm, so he quit having the actual publication and decided to make an exotic zoology chat room. But the very last published issue, the printed issue, had everybody's email included. And I started communicating with Dr. Schuker, and I offered to illustrate for him. And I don't advise to any young artist to do what I did, because I said, you know, Dr. Schuker, I'd really like to provide some illustrations for you, because the illustrations I've seen in some of your articles are kind of, you know, lacking, kind of subpar, only to find out that Carl had done the illustrations himself. I mean, lucky for me, Carl was very good humored about it, and we kind of went from there, and we just had a tremendous relationship going, starting with magazine articles for some British cat magazines. And I may have been one of the first to illustrate the Fijian blue tiger. And when he first told me about that, I'm thinking, okay, are you talking like a Russian blue cat, not really blue, but gray? And Carl's like, no, like an indigo bunting bird, blue, according to this Methodist missionary that had seen it and written a book about it. So I'm like, okay, we'll make this tiger blue. And what was funny is so many people have seen this illustration, and I'd have local art shows and I'd put my blue tiger on display. So many people did not notice it was blue. I mean, think about it. We so easily accept a bright orange tiger.
Yeah.
So, and then a little while later, Carl had a book coming out from Carlton Books, and it was Mysteries of Planet Earth. And at that time, he had received some of the first photos. They were taken by Indian wildlife authorities of a smuggled pelt that had a tiger had been killed in a village, and it was a pseudomelanistic tiger where the stripes had kind of coalesced together. And we used to have it's kind of common you see in your alley, your tabby cats. Some of them will have a bullseye pattern where they don't have those thin tiger stripes, but they have just like their stripes are big and thick, and they will make swirls. And that's what it reminded me of. And I only had like one photo to go from, but I believe I was lucky to be the first wildlife artist to actually do a representational painting of that, and that made it into his book. The blue tiger was on the front cover, and I was just thrilled. It was really my first published piece, so that was about 1999 by then. So that kind of started it, and then Carl was very kind to introduce me to Janet and Cullen Board of the Boarding Picture Library. And next thing I know, I start getting British sterling checks in the mail. And about once a year, she would send me this itemized list of all these publications and things I haven't heard of, children's books in France. And so it was a wonderful resource to get hooked up with Boarding Picture Library. And they took care of all the details and getting things to the publisher. And then I would get my percentage. Everybody was happy. And, I think they've kind of semi-retired now. I haven't heard from Janet in a while. Are they doing okay? Do you know?
I haven't heard from her in about 10 years. So.
Okay. Well, I think she sent me one of the checks about 4 or 5 years ago. But, it's just all just the friendship and camaraderie of this whole community. And here you see in the background here, this is one of my recent ones for the History Channel show, The Proof Is Out There. And then there's the one, this was a kind of a controversial one back there, The Beast of Seven Shoots. I think we spoke about it before. It was a very, very stereotypical fuzzy crypto photo. Yeah, while we're sitting here talking, John, if you see something in the background that you want to stop and talk about, we'll just.
Yeah, of course.
I'll do my best to remember what it was that I was thinking when I created it. And I believe that's, now this one, that is Marlon Lowe's Avian Abduction.
Wonderful story, isn't it?
Yes. And, Lauren Coleman and I believe Lauren's brother were early on in investigating that. And somewhere I have a collection of, I believe Lauren's brother had done a set of cryptozoology trading cards. So I've got a little treasure trove of like my own little cryptozoology museum here in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I'm wanting to make a road trip up to Maine to Lauren's museum because I met Lauren early on about the same time, online, of course. And I've met Lauren at conferences before. For a while, I was attending when they first started the Jefferson, Texas Bigfoot some of the conferences they have there. Of course, I met Ken Gerhard, Chester Moore Jr., Todd Jurassic. I met, just so many local guys in my area. And we were all about the same age. We all hit it off. We've all had a great time. About the only field research I've had a chance to do, oddly enough, it was about 2001. There was a terrible, terrible ice storm that year. And I had got a call that spring. I worked for a big printing company here in Fort Smith, and we were super busy come springtime because we did sporting event tickets for Major League Baseball, and we're always in a rush to get all that stuff out. And I got a call from John Kirk, and John Kirk said, "Where is LaFleur County, Oklahoma?" And I said, "Well, John, that's the county right next to my county here in Arkansas, because Fort Smith is right on the state line. We're the city that was famously mentioned in the John Wayne movie True Grit." And so we are a hell on the border town here, from the old days. But LaFleur County is the top of LaFleur County meets the bottom of Sebastian County. And it's a very long, deep county. So you start off kind of in the river valley, and that progresses down into southern LaFleur County. It looks like Northern California. It looks like you're in the mountains down there. Those are the Winding Staircase Mountains, actually mentioned in the movie True Grit. And yeah, that is some rough terrain, windy roads, small communities, rural towns, just, set off in the winding little roads of this mountain pass. And John was telling me there is some major Bigfoot activity going on down there in a little town called Honobia. Well, I'd never heard of Honobia. So I looked it up, and then I made some phone calls. There was an article in the paper. There was a news Channel 8 out of Tulsa had run this story, of course, making fun of the family. And like most Bigfoot reports, they go to the Game and Fish and they say, "Oh, this person saw a black bear standing upright," or whatever. Well, I had contacted the name of the family mentioned in the news reports, and they did not want to talk to anybody. They were sorry they'd ever said anything. And I finally tried again one other time. And I spoke to somebody. I said, "Look, I'm just an artist. I would love to come down there." And I found out it was actually pronounced Honubby. It's spelled Honobia, but it was actually pronounced by all the people around there Honubby. And I'm like, okay, I'd love to come to Honubby. And now they have their own Bigfoot conference and everything based on this first report. And I was able to meet the family, and they were, very cordial. They had really been done wrong by the news media, but their story was just amazing. And they've never profited off of this. And it's just been nothing but hardship on their family. And it was an amazing time to be, here. I lived like an hour and 20 minutes away from where this occurred. And I don't find out about it till John Kirk in, British Columbia contacts me and says, "Hey, you need to check this out. It's in your backyard."
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page, and check out our Patreon.
And there's the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little house, will tell you.
Don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you won't be told when the next episode's gonna be.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
If you've been affected by any of the topics in today's episode, you can just bugger off, because we don't give a monkeys. Bloody well get a grip. Sort your own bloody problems out rather than ringing up somewhere.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with Bill Rebsamen next week for the second part of his interview, but I'd like to thank him very, very much for his kindness and professionalism, because not only is he a nice guy who gave a lovely interview, but he sent me all the illustrative materials and background information that I could possibly want or need. So thank you very much for that, Bill. I'd also like to thank the people but for whom blah blah blah. Starting off with my producer Louis, who's a very dear sweet man, I love him very much, and the Deputy Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, who's also my carer, who's Graham Inglis, man I've known for 35 years and who, as well as being second in command of this ridiculous circus, he also looks after me in ways such as driving me to the hospital for medical appointments, making sure I take my medicine, changing my dressing and all that. Because, just in case you didn't know, I am pretty well housebound, certainly would be housebound without Graham, and I am very seriously disabled now, so I need someone to drive me around and do stuff that I'm just not physically able to do. However, I am physically able to do these shows, and I'm going to be back on Wednesday. What are we talking about on Wednesday? Well, we're going to talk about a very special appeal that we are doing for one of the best loved and most important members of the CFZ, who is now in a much worse physical condition than I am. And we're going to be talking about what happens for this year's Weird Weekend North. So our special guest on Wednesday is going to be Glenn Vaudrey. Apart from that, I'd like to say a big thank you to Gwyn Palmer, who is the Assistant Director of the CFZ and who does so much behind the scenes that I can't possibly list it all. Thank you, my dear. I don't know what we'd do without you. But now we know what I'm doing on Wednesday. But are you going to be there, Mr. McCrinnan? Are you going to be there on Saturday, Mr. McCrinnan? And are you going to be watching the show, Mr. McCrinnan? Because if you are, and you're there watching it, and I'm here doing the live chat and all the notifications and all the other stuff I do, I will certainly be seeing you.